Welcome into this week's edition of the Citrus Preps podcast alongside Mike Deem. I'm Brett Knutson. Appreciate you joining us the final week, the final day or two of January. Going to flip the calendar. And
Feels like January. It's good.
It's nice. Well, like I was telling somebody the other day, we may be in the 50s, but we're not like some places that are minus 50.
Minus 50, yeah.
So we're doing okay.
A little dash in front of it.
I'm sure some of the girls and the boys who've been outside playing soccer the last few days don't agree that it's okay, but it could be worse. So a lot to get to on this edition of the podcast. Wrapping up a lot of the winter sports, at least coming close to the regular season end. District tournaments going on. Have some teams that know that they're going to be playing in the state tournament, so that's great to talk about. Have some individuals that are going to be participating in the state tournament as well in other sports, so we'll get right to it. And it seems like maybe it doesn't get all the headlines, but we have some tremendous weightlifting programs in this county, and it's amazing to me. You always look at the boys and say, well, that's sort of a prep for getting ready for the football season, but we've got some talented young ladies who they're not doing it for football, but I mean they're very successful. That's great to see.
It is. Citrus and Lecanto both have pretty good programs, along with Chris Rivers still in there. But six little lasses, I should say, are going to the state championship in Panama City, a state 1A championship. It's Lecanto, Allison Wilson, and then Citrus Rebecca Tatum, another Citrus player, Kennedy Blevins from Lecanto, Essence Coakley, and two more from Citrus, Elena Merricks and Victoria Gins. All six are going to the state championship in Panama City.
Yeah, congratulations to them. That's an absolutely fantastic accomplishment. I don't care. We talk about it all the time. I don't care what sport, what you do. You get to state level competition. You've done something. I know the goal is to win a state championship. Doesn't happen for everybody, but to get there is quite an accomplishment, and they should all be proud. Congratulations to their coaches as well, who put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to help these young ladies and young men get to where they're at. So
wish them luck too, and then bring home a belt, bring home a state championship trophy. Let's do it.
Yeah, that would be great to see those hanging in the rafters. The individual accomplishments so important. Also, soccer, same thing. They start. Yeah, boy, I was out there.
It's like European League soccer now.
I was out there last week for one of the games, and it was thanks to the Lecanto girls for scoring so quickly. it helped me get out of there quickly. But boys side, they're getting ready for district tournament. Girls were into the district championship game, and it's it's been quite a season for the Lecanto girls. Interesting the way things developed last night in the semifinals. Citrus and Lecanto trying to match up against one another in the district championship. Didn't quite happen though.
No. And then Lecanto, basically, they were playing Vanguard actually last night.
Yeah, a team that they had played,
beaten, but they went into overtime. I mean, that's one of the great things about district championships is that you never know. And they were actually on the verge of losing, down 2-1 with a little less than 15 minutes to go in the half, and then Kristen King came in and put the game tied, and then they go into overtime in the first overtime. And again, with soccer, there's not one overtime, there's two overtimes, 2 10-minute overtimes. Yeah. And
these are highlights, by the way, you're watching of Lecanto's win over Bellevue the other night in the opening round of the district tournament. But as you said, Mike, they go into overtime and late in the first OT, right?
Yeah, late in the first OT was scored, and they scored 3 more times after that. They had 3 different people score in the overtime: Katie Van Cleef and Tristan King, and then also they had another young lady. I forgot to write down her name. I apologize, but she did very well there. But then ended up winning 5-2. They're going to be traveling to. They're actually not traveling; they're coming home. Eastside's going to come to them and play at home for the district championship.
Yeah, Thursday night at 7 p.m. Lecanto, the host. Eastside did knock off Citrus, so they ended the Lady Cane season. That was an opportunity for an all Citrus County district championship game. Didn't happen. 15-3 is Eastside's record. 17-3-1 is Lecanto. They split their regular season meetings, so this should be a heck of a soccer game Thursday night at 7 p.m. out at Lecanto. So if you can get out there, go out to support the Lady Panthers as they try to earn a spot in the state tournament, which they've gotten. But what you want to earn, obviously, is that home playoff game. The first game at home, it is a big deal. I think it's a huge deal, and I think Lecanto, Coach Town, they saw that firsthand how much it helped last year to get that home game. I mean, you're guaranteed one if you win that district championship game, and then it just kind of depends how the brackets play out. But get that win at home, although it's not going to be easy. Obviously, Eastside's a talented soccer team.
Yeah, but they're going on to the regional tournament anyway. But this is the third straight year they've gone to the regional tournament. So kudos to these ladies and Kevin Town.
Yeah, done a good job, and we've talked about them all year how good they've been. They did lose some talented players from a year ago, so to be right back in this position, and I know they've got a lot of talent. It's not easy to do. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, and you can say we got so many returning. It's hard to duplicate the run that they had last year. They had a little better record last year, but they're essentially in the same spot in the district championship game, a chance to earn a home state playoff game. So best of luck to them. As I said, Thursday night is when things get underway. It'll be a busy night out at Lecanto. I know it's senior night on the girls' side for basketball. Boys' side is getting ready to close out the district part of the schedule, and on the basketball side, that's where we're at right now. District play for girls came to an end on Friday night. Crystal River girls picked up a win over Lecanto, which pushed them into a tie for first place with Weeki Wachee. So congratulations to Coach Bryant and his team. I know when I talked to him at the beginning of the year, he said, look, Weeki Wachee is the team to beat. We all know it. We're all chasing them. Well, they caught him, and they tied him with a big win, a district win over Weeki Wachee, tied for first, unfortunately for Coach Bryant. And, I mean, look, I guess this is the way you do it. It goes down to a coin flip. Is how it worked out, but
that brings back memories.
Yeah, the coin flip, and Crystal River unfortunately loses the coin flip. That means that they don't get that automatic run into the semifinals. They do have to play a first round game. It's against the Central team that has had a difficult time winning. So if you're Coach Bryant, you get that game on Monday. You hope you win, and then you're off until Thursday. The other matchups on Tuesday, these games will all be next week. They are played at Nature Coast High School. Lecanto versus Citrus. That is the 4-5 matchup. They were tied. The coin flip goes to Citrus, so they get the white uniforms, and Lecanto will wear the green. That's all that means. It does mean it should be a pretty good basketball game because they've had two pretty good games this season. The last one at Citrus a couple weeks ago was a real good one. Nature Coast will take on Hernando, and then the semifinals will take place Thursday night with Weeki Wachee waiting in the wings. And they get to bye all the way till Thursday. So
Weeki Wachee did lose, so they've been proven they can be beaten.
Yeah, they've lost a few. I mean, the back half of the season for them, they've lost a couple times. Crystal River just absolutely dominated them in the fourth quarter of their win. So, maybe when the season started, there was a thought, and I sort of alluded to it as well. I think there was a thought that if you could be somewhere like the third seed, like Hernando is right now, and you could get Crystal River in the semifinals, maybe you got a chance to spring the upset. I think from what Crystal River's done this year, I don't think that's the case anymore. No. I mean, whether you play Crystal River in the semifinals or you play Weeki Wachee in the semifinals, you're going to have your hands full. I know that Lecanto and Crystal River had a pretty good battle Friday night out at Crystal River on the girls' side. I know Coach Allen, talking to him, his girls didn't shoot the ball very well in that game. I think he'd like another crack at either Weeki Wachee or Crystal River, and if he beats Citrus, he'll get that chance. I know Coach Bryant, his girls probably didn't think they played their best game, and it was tough coming off a win over Weeki Wachee, even though you're playing Lecanto. It's tough, but I mean, now it comes down to, for all of these girls, it's a one-game season. You got to figure out a way to win a game, and all of them will have to try to figure out a way to pick up a victory. Crystal River on Monday night, even though they'll be heavy favorites, you got to go out there and take care of business, and they should against Central.
That's why you play the game.
And it should be a marvelous basketball game, I think, between Lecanto and Citrus. Citrus is playing some of the best basketball in the district right now. They had a win the other night over the Lake Weir girls. They have beaten Hernando. They have beaten Lecanto, all in the last couple weeks, and also Nature Coast as well. So they're a confident team right now, and they'll match up with Lecanto. Hernando Nature Coast has had a couple of very good basketball games this year. So those two games on Tuesday night, if you can get out there to Nature Coast High School, should be they should be great because they're great matchups. But also you got to throw everything in that game, because if you lose, it's turned into uniform time.
Right, and also they're indoors, so you won't have to worry about the weather.
It doesn't matter what the weather is. You're good with that.
-50 or 50, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're good. good. The boys' side in district play, they are getting ready to finish up the district regular season. They'll have another week of play before they get to the district tournaments, and this is where the standings are. Just to show, I mean, Nature Coast obviously has been the dominant team, but they were beaten by Central, last week. So Central.
Call that aberration, though. I mean, it's kind of there's a letdown.
I know they've had a couple of guys hurt and dinged up. We'll see. But I mean, I certainly know Crystal River would like another shot at them. We'll see. Going into the last week, it's some jumbled standings, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I mean, Crystal River and Lecanto played a heck of a basketball game on Friday night. It was, down to the very last possession, and there's a chance that those two could see each other. Nature Coast is going to be the number 1 seed for sure. They're going to get that bye all the way to that Thursday semifinal. Crystal River is going to be the number 2 seed. They will play Weeki-Wachee, the first game of the district tournament, on a Monday night. Everything else is really 3, 4, 5, and 6 are up in the air. Number 1 because they're close. Number 2 because the way the schedule. Lecanto will take on Nature Coast. Hernando plays Crystal River. And depending on how that goes and where the tiebreakers fall, how will you be 3 or 4? Central still factors in with a chance to get to 6 wins. They're playing Citrus. Citrus would need a win to try and move up in the standings. Otherwise, they will be the 6th seed and would have to play Crystal River. So it'll be interesting how it all plays out. We talked about it on the girls' side, and I think it's true on the boys' side. If you go by scores, and I know scores don't always indicate it, but if you're Hernando and Lecanto, you're probably trying as best you can, whatever the tiebreakers are, to be the number 3 seed. Yeah. Now, you're going to have a tough first-round game in the district, but if you get the 3 seed, you would more than likely end up seeing Crystal River in the semifinals. Crystal River and Lecanto have played some close games, and the margin of victory for Nature Coast against Lecanto and Hernando and some of those teams have been a little bigger. So that's probably what you're looking for, but, I mean, again, it's the district tournament, and strange things can happen.
Big time.
Nature Coast has lost, so even if you are the team that gets the 4 or 5 seed, and if you win, you get Nature Coast, you feel like, okay, Central is at best going to finish 500 in district, and they've got the win over Nature Coast. So there is that recipe for beating them. You just have to figure out a way to go get it done.
Yep. Which
won't be easy. But so the regular season in terms of district comes to an end for the boys this Friday night. They will have a week of regular games, non-district games, before they get set for the district tournament. It will be in a couple weeks. It'll be a week from Monday it starts, and that will be out at Lecanto High School. So that'll be a ton of fun. Again, if you're looking for some quality basketball, you'll see it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday out there. It should be a ton of fun. Looking forward to it.
Definitely. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be a basketball season just winding down, but, you got to remember, too, baseball and softball season just around the corner. Actually, tryouts, I think, are starting.
They've already started. I mean, I know I talked to Coach Dupler out at Lecanto. They've already started practicing, so tryouts are finished. I know the same out at Citrus and Crystal River, so baseball, softball is here again. Some of them you're waiting for the basketball kids to come if they're playing baseball or softball, but at the end of February or the middle of February, around the 15th or 16th, is when you'll get some of the preseason games in baseball and softball, and then you take off with the season. So it's right here. We talked about it when football ended. You just go from one season to another. There's not a week off. There's not a day off. I mean, you're going to have kids who play their last basketball game on a Tuesday or a Friday, and then on Monday they're out.
They're swinging at the skin right there.
Yeah,
the ball.
Should be fun. So that's how it sets up with the end of the winter sports season as we get into the spring schedule. Wanted to also mention, we've talked about it, but now it became official. I think Tuesday or maybe yesterday. In high school football, everything has been approved and is going to go into effect. The RPI is now the determining factor for high school football playoffs. The 2 years of the point system have come to an end. So RPI, and we've mentioned it just in case you don't know, it's all about strength of schedule, and it's all based on the schedule that you play. So teams that, if you are affected by, we hope not, but if you are affected by a forfeit or hurricane forcing a game that can't be made up, your schedule would be based on your 9 games or your 10 games, whatever it is. So that helps a little bit of the burden, I guess, if there is some weather issues.
Well, they had that last year with the Panhandle.
Yeah, how do you make those games up? How does it affect the teams that are in it, and how do you go about doing that? So, whether you've got a 10-game body of work or a 9-game body of work, they break it down by your strength of schedule and your winning percentage. It'll go by your winning percentage, which is 35% of the formula. The other 35% would be your opponent's winning percentage, and then 30% are the opponent's winning percentage. And you factor those all together, you get a number, and that becomes your ranking. Again, in the bigger classifications, 5A on up, you are still in a district, and the district champ will automatically go. So you'll have 4 regions, and you'll have 4 district champions. You'll still have 4 wild cards, and those wild cards will now be determined by strength of schedule. Yeah. So
what is algorithm just to figure it out?
Yeah, and what is, does it change anything from? It obviously changes things from what we had a couple of years ago when the top 2 came in your district. You didn't have to worry about your non-district schedule. You could schedule as hard or as light as you wanted to, and you knew if you had a 5 or 6 district schedule, if you finished first or second, you were in. That all went by the wayside a couple of years ago with the point standings, and I think coaches, even after this year, we're still trying to figure out how it all worked. I think the belief is that the strength of schedule, the RPI, it's easier to understand. It's easier as you're going through the season to figure it out, because
it's easier on the scheduling. So, if you're going to try to play, upper echelon teams, and they're all trying to get to that point, you got to really. It's going to be hard on the coaches.
Yeah, but a lot of it, even with the point standings, you wanted teams that you played to finish with good records.
Sure.
You didn't want to play a team that you thought was going to go 0-10. Especially if you thought you were a playoff team. There's some teams where, look, coaches are smart and they know how they want their season to go. I think some teams and coaches who know what their season is going to be like, you may purposely schedule some non-district games where you can win, because you probably aren't thinking playoffs. You're trying to gain some things, and that's understandable. But if you're a team that wants to go to the playoffs, and I think if you look at the teams in our county, all of them last year, felt that they probably could if they took care of business. So you didn't want to schedule 0-10 teams. And I think the RPI doesn't change that. It's easier to figure out while you're going through the season. You're going to know week 6 what your opponent's records are. And it may take some time, but you can go through all those opponents' schedules and write down who they've beaten, and what their record is. And so you'll be able to figure it out, I think, a little easier where you stand within your region. Does it change scheduling? I don't know. I don't know if it will change scheduling a lot. For me, I still think most schools, especially in our area, and if you go down into Hernando and the Hernando County schools, I still think scheduling, by and large, for non-district is all about proximity.
And dollars.
We've seen some of our teams have to travel across the state for some non-district games, but you don't like to do that. Yeah. With the way the districts have, and I know Lecanto's now has moved up to a 6A school, so they will play a different district. But if you can schedule a team in Pasco County, if you're a Citrus Hernando County school non-district, you'd like to do it. Yeah. Number one, the competition is pretty level. We've seen that throughout the state playoffs, and I think for around here, you're not going to see a lot of it now. Are some teams going to maybe try to schedule Zephyr Hills, who's been one of the dominant teams down in Pasco, or are you going to try to go after Hudson, who's had some trouble? You may see that, and vice versa. Hudson's probably not going to try to schedule Nature Coast non-district. No. They may call somebody else. So I think you'll see some of that, but it'll be interesting to see what the differences are once you get to the end of this. Does the RPI, is it more fair than the point standings. I think it's easier to understand. I don't think there'll be as many surprises. I think that's the problem a lot of the coaches had, was the surprises at the end, where even going into the last week, you did the math and you could figure out what you needed to have happen. You know, we talk about a winless team that got in on the point standings. Would that happen with the RPI? Seems like it wouldn't, and maybe that's one of the things they're trying to correct.
Yeah, that's true. So it's just going to come down to, you know, whether or not your team can produce anyway. It doesn't matter. You got to still win games. You still got to have that win-loss record.
You still, and again, I mean, if you're in a classification where you have a district, obviously the boring argument is win your district, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, but I mean the point is you want the best teams in the state playoffs, right. And I think with the RPI you're going to hopefully get more of that.
Let me ask you: would this hurt a team that, say, starts slow in the beginning, and then, but it really won't matter, because if you're playing better opponents in the back end, it's even better for you.
You know, it always helps. Obviously, the more you win.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because your winning percentage is 35% of it, and you know you want the teams that you played to do good, and I mean, if that ends up being the case, you know, you've got 70% of the equation in your favor. You just have to see. I mean, yeah, obviously, if you're consistent throughout the year and you go 8-2, you're probably going to be in. Yeah. I mean, if you start 0-4 and then win 6 in a row or 6-4, you're probably going to be in a dicey situation. But that's sort of the way it should work out, right? I mean, this is what happens in the NFL. This is what happens in college football.
97 I mean, 10 or 6 or 97 to go to playoffs.
That's sort of the way it goes. You know, and I think what they're trying to do, the RPI and the point standings, both, they're trying to get rid of the inequality. They're trying to make the outliers not happen as much. Now, you know, does that mean that there might be a case where there are two teams that are very close in the RPI, but one ended up beating the other somehow during the regular season, but the other one gets in because they have a better winning? That might happen. And, you know, does that... Maybe that goes to your argument. You know, what that team lost in, you know, the beginning of September, but by the time they got to the beginning of November, they had improved, even though they lost to that team. And maybe that team that beat them leveled out
or went down either way.
You know, so I mean, just because that may happen doesn't mean it's wrong, right? I don't think it necessarily blow up the system because there was a team who beat somebody head to head, but that other team got into the playoffs. That is part of it. It may happen, right? You know, and
what is the adage though on public versus private on some of these schools too? Is that still going to have the RPI?
Well, I mean, if it's out of state too. I mean, if you know, obviously last year Hernando played a team from the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into account your strength of schedule in terms of you know where a team finished or what classification they are.
Okay.
You don't, if you're a 5A team and you play an 8A team, you don't get a bonus point. You don't get any bonus points. You don't get anything. You know, you're playing a team that has a record, and that team's record is part of that equation. Okay. So does that?
So if you're playing a team like Jacksonville Bowls down here,
I mean,
they're preliminary winners for eons. You know,
that would be the concerning thing for some schools. Is okay, you know, will there be some higher classification schools that load up on smaller classification schools? You know, maybe,
even
but
better ones.
Are those 1A schools going to schedule 6A schools now?
No, but if
they're probably not.
No, they're going to look at a 3A or 4A, a 5A. 5A or 6A, and they're going to go like an 8A coming down to a 5A.
Yeah, and so you know, but then again, I mean, if you're a 5A, are you going to want to schedule an 8A? Probably not, unless it makes sense geographically.
That's what I'm saying. If you're close enough within geographic terms, and say you go down to a team that is, you know, an hour away, and they're 8A, and they've been perennial winners for eons.
Yeah.
Do you schedule them just to say, okay, they're going to have a winning record, but we may have a loss, but we may be close enough. Who knows?
Well, you know, one of the interesting things, and I don't think it'll change. I don't know for sure. I don't know the schedules, but obviously for the last few years, Dunellen has always played Crystal River and Citrus. Dunellen is now moving up to a 5A, and that's where Citrus and Crystal River will be. Dunellen's in a district with North Marion and Vanguard. So, I mean, you know, if you're looking at Dunellen, you may be saying They may not have the record they had the last couple of years. They're moving up. They're playing in a better district. Now, I mean, last year they had a 500 record or thereabouts, but they played so many playoff teams. You know, does Crystal River look at Dunellen and say, okay, does it? If I look at them and think they're going to be 5-5, would I be better? And I know they played both these teams last year, but would I be better served to play Southlake, who looks like they could go 7-3, and does scheduling a team with 2 more wins help me to get in? I think because of the ease, the tradition, and all that kind of stuff, I don't think you'll see the Dunellen Citrus and Dunellen Crystal River games go by the wayside. But scenarios like that, I think coaches will have to think about. I mean, Crystal River was a playoff team last year. They got in as a wild card. And I'm sure Coach Lowry and his crew are looking at it going, okay, what are we going to need? How many wins do we need? You know, we have an idea of you probably have a pretty good idea of what your district's going to look like and who's going to win what next year. Who do we schedule non-district? Who are, you know, okay, we know we've got Dunellen. Who do we go after? Can we take a chance and try to get maybe a 4A or a 5A school that's, you know, going to be below 500? Or do we try to find a school? I mean, do we want to schedule Zephyr Hills and take our chances with them non-district and because they could win 8 or 9 or 10 games, and that would be a huge boost. I don't know.
Very interesting scenarios. A lot of different scenarios can come out of this.
Yeah, but I still think, you know, for most teams, especially with the way we've seen it work out. I know a couple of years ago, Citrus was on the cusp. They didn't get in because of the point standings. They were the odd team out. But I think, you know, for the most part, the last couple of years, the point standings in this area, teams who deserved to get in earned their way in. There was nothing that stuck out. I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, you talk about Hernando was really good, Nature Coast was, and so was Citrus. 2 out of the 3 got in. You know, it didn't help Citrus, but, you know, last year, 3 teams from that district did get in. Right, it was Crystal River, Nature Coast, and Hernando. And I think, you know, talking to Coach Varnador, you know, he knew they had some chances early in the season that they missed, which would have elevated them, and they probably would have gotten in. And so from our area, I still think the best teams will get in. Strength of schedule will be a part of it, but I still think the best teams are going to get in. And when you put it all together, whether you have a win over a 2-8 team or a 5-5 team, you hope that isn't the minute number that keeps up, because sometimes you can't control that.
No, you can't.
I mean, you could look at your schedule and say, okay, this team's probably going to go 8-2. This team's probably going to go 3-7. This team's probably going to go 5-5. Well, what happens if the 5-5 team breaks his leg the first week and they're a 1-9 team, exactly. And that team that's supposed to go 8-2, their star running back is out, and they go 1-9. Oh boy!
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's always going to be these things that are going to happen during the season that are going to be. Yeah, and I haven't talked to every coach, but I think you schedule games that you believe are going to be competitive and you have a chance to win. 50-50. I want light competition, and I want to see how good we are. If we schedule those non-district, you'll be ready for district. If you're a team that doesn't play in the district, you know you're going to want to make maybe your schedule is 5 games that can go both ways. You know, some people have said you schedule 3, you know you're going to win. You schedule 3, you're not sure you're going to win, and then you have 4 that you feel it out.
And you know that determines who you are. We'll see.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a dramatic shift in our area in terms of scheduling.
No.
Number one, you still don't know how it's going to play out, so I don't think you overreact and overdo the schedule. Right? I think you just sort of wait and see.
Yep.
So that'll do it for us. I mean, we won't spend much time. Real quick, I'll let you. NFL this Sunday, Super Bowl. Do you?
You can't go against Tom Brady and Belichick. I'm sorry.
You can't. No. 2 weeks to prepare.
Yep.
The only thing I will say is, if you look at the Patriots' Super Bowl losses, the 2 to the Giants and last year to Philadelphia, it felt to me that in those games they lost to teams that, I mean, it's hard to say if you get to the Super Bowl you're significantly worse than your opponent, but those Super Bowls, I felt if the Patriots play whoever those were, the Giants twice, they play them 10 times, I think the Patriots win 7 or 8 of them.
Right.
They got beat by a lesser opponent.
They did.
And I think the Rams are a lesser opponent. I think the Rams are good. I don't think they're there yet. And so that gives me pause to, okay, the Patriots can, I mean, they've played some really good teams in the Super Bowl and beaten them.
Just for some
that
reason.
Atlanta game was fantastic. Sometimes they seem like they stub their toe against a team you assume they're going to outcoach and outplay in
I'm
the
not
Super
saying
Bowl.
it's a given. I'm just saying I won't, bet against them. Let's put it
I
that way.
would bet my house against it. No. I mean, I hope it's a high scoring, fun football game. Comes down to the last few plays, and I think you worry about that with the Rams because they haven't been in that situation,
Right.
the Super Bowl. But I mean, they've got a confident young coach. They've got a confident quarterback. They've got the ability to run the football.
Defense is pretty good.
They've got a couple of difference makers on defense. So I mean.
Could be. I mean, hopefully, it's a good game.
I mean,
no
if
matter
it's
what.
the problem, I think is
I don't have any dog in a fight.
There's going to be no way it can possibly be as good as the AFC and NFC championship games that we just saw. That's the problem. So that's what I was telling people. That's when you need to have the party.
Yeah.
The AFC and
You're right.
that's a doubleheader. They're better games. Everyone's going to be together, and who knows what's going to. It could be an ugly game. But we've had a string of really good Super
Bowl,
Bowls. So
I think the last blowout was in Tampa, wasn't it?
yeah, and the Patriots to me I don't see them winning this game 31-10 in a blowout.
No,
I mean, I just don't think that they are that team.
I think they scored 31. I think you're right on that end. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game at 31-34, 37-31, something like that.
As long as it's a game in the fourth quarter, and I think it will be. Like I said, this may be the most interesting Patriots team.
You're just going to watch the commercials. That's right.
No, those have gotten kind of old too, haven't they?
They are really bad.
Why do we even watch?
I don't even watch it anymore.
Okay, well, I mean, hopefully it's a good game, and if you're from the Northeast, root for the Patriots. If you're from Southern California, I guess the Rams have a following.
Arizona over, I think is what it is.
Maybe that's still Cowboys country to a lot of them, isn't it? We'll have to see. Yeah. But okay, so you go Patriots. I just hope for a good game. Next week when we talk to you, we'll be smack dab in the middle of the girls' basketball district tournament. We will have the semifinal games set. We'll know who the final four are battling out to get into the state tournament, so we'll talk about that. We'll have some some state soccer to talk about because Lecanto will be in the state tournament. Boys will be getting closer to the state tournament. We'll be talking about that as well. So a lot going on as we continue to roll through the winter sports as they come to an end close to the next couple weeks, and then we get into spring. So that'll do it for us this week. Check us out on YouTube for all the stories, highlights, and updates, as well as on Twitter as well. And we'll see you here again next Wednesday for our Citrus Preps podcast.